Hey, what's up guys? It's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a $30 budget build of the new Cyber Strike structure deck. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys, because these decks are awesome right out of the box, giving you all sorts of awesome reprints, and even giving us new support for Cyber Dark and Cyber Dragon. So the point of this video is to take 3 of these really amazing Cyber Strike structure decks, fuse them all together, and make one really awesome $30 deck. And I'm quite impressed with what you can actually do with all the new support and the new reprints that we got from these structure decks. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed cards mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this one guys. So first off, we're gonna be playing 2 copies of Cyber Dark Chimera. So this is something that all Cyber Dragon players have wanted for a very long time, including me. And what this card does is you discard a spell or trap to add a power bond from your deck to your hand. And you can only use dragon or machine cyber monsters as fusion material this turn. Also, once when you fusion summon this turn, you can banish monsters from your graveyard as material for that fusion summon. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send a Cyber Dark monster from your deck to the graveyard with a different name from the cards in your graveyard. And you can only use each effect this card once per turn. This card is absolutely nuts. I really love this card at either 1 or 2. Currently in the budget build, I'm playing it at 2, and I'm really loving it at this number in this particular build. It's a really awesome card that we really needed for both Cyber Dragon and Cyber Dark to give us a Power Bond Searcher finally. We then play a single copy of Cyber Dark Horn, Cyber Dark Edge, and Cyber Dark Heel. These are basically here to summon out your copy of your Cyber Dark Dragon. They all have pretty much the same effect, that when you normal summon them, you get to target a level 3 or lower dragon monster in your graveyard, equip that dragon monster to this card, and they gain attack equal to the original attack of that monster, which is a pretty neat effect just to give them extra attack points on normal summon. And then they all have unique effects. Like Cyber Dark Horn does piercing damage, your Cyber Dark Edge can attack your opponent but half its attack points or half the damage, and then the effect of Keel is the worst one, and if this card would be destroyed by battle, you destroy the equipped monster instead. They all share, but Keel's a unique effect is if this card destroys a monster by battle, you inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent. So all 3 of these are needed in the deck so you can go into your copy of your Cyber Dark Dragon. We then play 2 copies of Cyber Dark Cannon. The big effect of this card is you can discard this card to the graveyard to add a machine Cyber Dark monster from your deck to your hand, which is going to be your Cyber Dark Chimera or any of your Cyber Dark monsters right here between Horn, Keel, and Edge. We then play 3 of one of the best cards in the entire deck, and it's 3 copies of Cyber Dark Claw. Cyber Dark Claw is an awesome card in this deck, and has some very, very good effects for this particular build, that you can discard this card to add a Cyber Dark spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is a awesome effect just to be able to grab all sorts of different spells and traps from the deck. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. I really like 3 copies in the budget build because it helps me get out all sorts of different cards like my Cyber End Dragon, and it lets me get a free special summon to my side of the field if it's the first card out, which is very, very helpful. We're then playing the best normal summon in the entire deck, which is 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Core. Cyber Dragon Core is an awesome card that has the ability that this card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while in the field or in the graveyard. And if this card is normal summon, you get to add a Cyber spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And if only your opponent controls a monster, you can banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a Cyber Dragon monster from your deck, which is a awesome effect just to be able to use this card for power bond plays and be able to normal summon it and search all of our cyber spells and traps that we have in the deck. We then play a single copy of Cyber Dragon Hurts. This card's big effect that we're going to be using with this card is if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one other Cyber Dragon from your deck to your hand, which gives you a search, which is really good, especially comboed with our Cyber Dark Horizon. We then play a single copy of Cyber Dragon Nasher. I think 1 copy is totally fine in the budget build and in any other build, because what this card does is this card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while in the field or in the graveyard, and you can discard a card to special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can target a machine monster with 2100 attack or defense and special summon it. And also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest turn except for machine monsters. I really like it as a 1-of in here because it helps out a lot to give me all sorts of different plays to recover back my copies of Cyber Dragon and gives you additional types in the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. And when we get into the spells, that's when it starts getting really crazy. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the new Cyber Dark Realm. I love this card. This is what a searcher should be. And what this card does is when it's activated, you can add a Cyber Dark monster from your deck to your hand with a different name from cards in your graveyard. And then during the main phase, you can immediately have this effect resolves, normal summon an additional Cyber Dark monster to your side of the field. You can only use the previous effect of Cyber Dark Realm once per turn. And if you equip a monster from your graveyard by effect to a Cyber Dark monster that activated when it was normal or special summon, you can equip an opponent's monster from their graveyard instead, which is really good because it can rip cards out of your opponent's graveyard and just basically equip them onto your copies of your Cyber Dark monsters. We then play 3 copies of my personal favorite new card of all of them, and that's 3 copies of Cybernetic Horizon. This card is awesome. I love the artwork of it, basically showing you them making Cyber Dark End Dragon. I think that's really, really cool. And it has the ability, this card always is treated as a Cyber Dark card, and it lets you send 2 dragons and or machine cyber monsters with different attributes from your deck to the graveyard, 1 from your hand and 1 from your deck. And then you get to add a dragon or a machine type cyber monster from your deck to your hand. This card combos very well with Cyber Dragon Hertz because this also turns into another search when you send your copy of Hertz from the hand or the deck to the graveyard, and it just is a really good card to be able to do that with. It also has the ability that you can also send a machine cyber fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard after you use that first effect, which is really good to be able to just get a search, get 2 Foolish Burials and a extra Foolish Burial from the extra deck to get your copy of Cyber End into the graveyard so you can then make Cyber Dark End really, really easily. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. This card lets us add a light monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, or a Cyber Dragon monster from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect just to be able to give us additional searches. We then play 3 copies of Machine Duplication. I chose to play 3 copies of Machine Duplication in the budget build because I can special summon out all those copies of my Cyber Dragons to my side of the field, and then use copies of Power Bond to be able to fusion summon into a copy of Cyber End Dragon to give me an 8,000 piercing beat stick, which is really, really good. We then play a single copy of Overload Fusion. Overload Fusion lets us fusion summon into a Dark fusion monster from our extra deck by banishing the materials from the graveyard, which is really good for this particular deck because you have all sorts of cards that you get your monsters into the graveyard so you can fusion summon into some really powerful extra deck monsters. We then play 3 copies of Power Bond. Power Bond is one of the best fusion spells still to this day in this game, and what this card does is it lets you fusion summon into a machine fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, and then it gains attack equal to its original attack. So basically you double the attack of the monster when it hits the field, which is a really good effect. The only drawback to this card is during the end phase, you take damage equal to the amount that that monster gains. So if you summon out a copy of Cyber End Dragon, it gains 4,000, then you lose 4,000 life points. But it's still a really good card to be able to summon to your side of the field a Cyber End at 8,000 with piercing damage. We then play just a single copy of Cyber Dark Inferno. Cyber Dark Inferno is really good because if this card is the only card, or if this card is in your control, is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you get to add a polymerization or a fusion spell from your deck to your hand, which can be your Overload Fusion. But it also has a really good effect that Cyber Dark effect monsters you control that are equipped with effect monster or equipped with equipped cards cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And also your opponent cannot target them with card effects as well, which is really good to be able to protect your Cyber Dark monsters. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a couple of copies, just 2 copies of our Cyber Dark Invasion. Cyber Dark Invasion is a really good card because once per turn, you can activate the effect of to target a Cyber Dark effect monster you control, equip a dragon or machine monster from either player's graveyard to that card as an equipped spell that gives it 1,000 extra attack points, which is really good, especially when you use it with your copy of Cyber Dark End Dragon to be able to get this card to be able to attack multiple times, which is really good. Or you get to send an equipped card you control to the graveyard that is equipped to a machine monster, and then you get to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. You're basically just a pop card. It's really good to be able to do that. And then we play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence was included in the structure deck. It's a really good hand trap and basically sells the entire structure deck on its own, which this card is really good because it has the ability to basically be kind of like an effect evaluator that you target a face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end phase of turn, and then if this card was set before it was activated on the field at resolution, for the rest of the turn, all other spells and traps effects in this card's column are negated. And if you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. It's one of the best hand traps in the entire game, and it's a definite 3-up in the budget build because it comes in the structure deck. So that's it for the traps. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we only have a couple of different monsters that we can actually play in the extra deck, but they did give us 5 extra deck monsters included in the structure deck. So you're basically playing 3 of each, which is 3 copies of Cyber Dark End Dragon. This card is a really awesome new boss monster that we got. It requires a Cyber Dark Dragon and a Cyber End Dragon to fusion summon to this card, but it also has a really neat summoning requirement as well, that it must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a level 10 or lower Cyber Dark fusion monster equipped with Cyber End Dragon, and it's unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. And then once per turn, you can equip a monster from either player's graveyard to this card, and this card can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of equipped cards equipped to it. This card can literally attack like 5 times, 6 times, which is really, really crazy to be able to do. To be able to attack all those times with this card to be able to OTK your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Cyber End Dragon. This card requires 3 Cyber Dragons to fusion summon into this card, and it does piercing damage, which is a really good thing. I love the artwork of this card. As you guys can probably tell by the mat, I love Cyber End Dragon. It's a card, ever since it was released, I thought was one of the coolest cards in the entire game, and it's really awesome that you can play 3 of it in the budget build. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Dark Dragon. Cyber Dark Dragon is a really good card as well. It requires a Cyber Dark Horn, Edge, and Keel to fusion summon in this card, and it must be fusion summoned. If this card is special summoned, then you get to target a dragon monster in your graveyard and equip that target to this card, and it gains attack equal to the original attack of the monster equipped to this card, and it also gains 100 attack for each monster in your graveyard, and this card would be destroyed. You can destroy the equipped card instead, which is still a pretty good effect, just to be able to give it additional protection and give you a way to summon out your copy of your Cyber Dark End Dragon. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Darkness Dragon. This card is a little bit more generic than our copy of Cyber Dark Dragon, but it requires a little bit more to summon it. It actually requires 5 Cyber Dark effect monsters to fusion summon this card, which is actually kind of easy in this deck to pull off. And it must be first be fusion summoned. If this card is special summoned, you can equip a dragon or machine monster from your graveyard to this card, and it gains attack equal to the original attack of the monster equipped to this card by its effect. And then when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can send an equipped spell you control to the graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy that card. This card's really good to summon to your side of the field because it gives you additional negations, and it's overall just a fantastic card to summon. We then play 3 copies of Chimera Tech Over Dragon. This card is the awesome card to summon with Overload Fusion because it has the ability that requires a Cyber Dragon plus any 1+ machine, so you can put as many machines as you want into this card, but it has the ability that it must be fusion summoned. If this card is fusion summoned, you send all the cards you control to the graveyard, and its original attack and defense become the attack and defense, or become equal to the amount of fusion materials you put in this card times 800. And this card can attack your opponent's monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials you put in this card, which is really amazing that you can put all those different cards into this card to make it have multiple attacks and be able to get really, really big. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's really amazing how much you can actually do with this deck straight out of the box. Like, it's really crazy to me. It's such a good structure deck. It has so many good cards, and I'm really excited to show you guys some really amazing Cyber Dark deck profiles and some Cyber Dragon deck profiles. You guys should check them out. Make sure you hit the bell so you can get those videos when they come out, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.